Hi, good evening, and welcome to this week's installment of the Minority Report. I'm Arlan David, your host, and as per usual, we have an interesting program lined up for you this evening. We're going to be having some discussions that we're going to be following up on some of the things that would have been tabled last week at the press conference held at the Office of the Minority Leader. However, before we get into that this evening, I want to do the administrative part of the program. You are looking at this show this evening on the Tobago Updates Facebook page, which is, I believe, the most viewed platform thus far. And I must say kudos to the team at Tobago Updates for doing a remarkable job, not just in terms of their consistency, but in terms of the level of professionalism and really going the distance to get this program out. But you can also view the Minority Report on the Tobago Updates website. And that is accessible just by typing in Tobago Updates website, www.tobagoupdates, and you're going to see it come up. You can also look at the program on the Tobago Updates YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube. Many of us are very familiar with the YouTube platform, and type in Tobago Updates and you can get onto the program live as well. What is interesting, and this was new to the platform, is that you can also view the Minority Report on M&E TV live. And for those of you who subscribe to the M&E TV platform, this is indeed a welcomed addition. So there you have it. You can also see us on the television, sitting in the comfort of your home, for those who don't want to log on to the internet, as it were. If you have comments, questions, recommendations, you can also send those to our WhatsApp number, which has been provided for your convenience. That number is 284-6597. That's 284-6597. And at this time, I really want to encourage you to get the link to them. Those of you who may not be able to share the link, take up the phone, call your friend, even to send them a WhatsApp and say the Minority Report is now on, so you can feel free to log in. I know many persons definitely look forward to this program, as was even echoed today. There were many sentiments, sometimes as you walk the road, persons actually calling out and saying, listen, I've been following the show, I've been looking on, the information is really, really good. Solid information, credible sources, and keep up the good work, extend the greetings and so on. So I want to say thank you to the Tobago public for the support thus far, and I know that based on the encouragements being received, that persons only look forward to more and greater things coming out of the platform. Again, this minority is committed to keeping the mandate as given to the Office of the Minority Leader, which is to ventilate the issues, to hold the administration accountable, to promote transparency, to promote equity, and to ensure that the persons and the people of Tobago get good governance. And that is what every show is geared towards. This evening, we're going to go to a short break. Encourage you to share the live, get it to as many persons as possible. And when we come back, I'm going to introduce our guests after we do a couple congratulations and some protocols. So stay logged on, stay locked on. Keep viewing, share the link, share the live, and we'll be right back.
Socialize! Friday, 27th of January, Shore Park Complex.
Don't worry, lover. Don't worry, friend. Don't worry, partner. Socialize is here. Don't worry, lover. Don't worry, friend. Don't worry, partner. Tobago,
Socialize! Friday, 27th of January, Shore Park Complex.
It's so much my heart could take. Socialize.
Socialize!
Freedom at last. Raise a glass.
Socialize!
Tell them, look for where. 27th of January. Look for where.
Bang! It's scary. Yeah. Jesus Christ, mother walk. Look at people behavior. Yeah. We getting on bad, we up in your area. Yeah. When you see we coming, you know it's danger. Yeah, we better than you and all of your neighbor. Yeah. And we no afraid nothing. We no afraid, we no afraid, we no afraid nothing. We no afraid, we no afraid, we no afraid nothing. Cause we no afraid, we no afraid.
Comfort Inn and Suites presents Sweet Soca, the all-inclusive edition, featuring the Vice Queen of Soca, Van Lyons Alvarez.
Let's go, let's go.
And the Viking of Soca, Bungie Garland.
I'm not going no small fret, let me extend my apologies.
Welcome to an all-inclusive premium experience with an all-star DJ cast, live steel band, a fully stocked premium bar, and cuisine from around the world, and many more surprises. This is a staycation package you don't want to miss. For more info, call our hotline 612-3835. It's the Comfort Inn and Suites Sweet Soca, the all-inclusive edition, Saturday, 4th February 2023.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, cause this is your show.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorn's Place, with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorn's Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Yeah, back. And again, welcome to the Minority Report. Before we kick off our discussions, as we usually do, we always find a reason to congratulate and to give someone kudos. And this week, in the sole person, and again, we designated this corner for this particular purpose, we want to say congratulations to President-elect Christine Kangaloo on her appointment, winning the vote in the Electoral College. We want to really say that, you know, it's going to be indeed a great thing to sit and look at her as she continues her service to Trinidad and Tobago. Such a sterling performance in the Senate, and now she has been elevated to the presidency. And we know that she is going to continue serving with distinction in that new role. So congratulations going out. And I know it's going to be echoed by our guests as they also chime in also in that corner. And we know he would have been interviewed on Tobago Updates. Tobago Updates doesn't miss a beat when it comes to getting persons into their interview lineup. But congratulations as well to the new president of the Senate, Senator Nigel De Freitas out of Tobago. This evening, joining me in studio, I have the what many people call now the Dream Team. The Dream Team. Joining us today is none other than the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, and the Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And how are you all this evening?
Let me say good evening to the viewers. Always a pleasure being on this program and having you all locked on, listening to the discussions that are very important and pertinent to us all here in Tobago. Good evening, Minority Councillor, and good evening, Mr. David.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, good evening, Tobago, good evening to all of you viewing, listening to us on the Minority Report. Thank you for joining us for another episode as we discuss the issues of governance in relation to the Tobago House of Assembly, and as we continue to do our work in keeping this Executive Council and this administration accountable. So I'm really happy to be here again on another episode of the Minority Report.
And as usual, I know persons normally look forward to what comes out of the program. This evening, we're going to start with a usual, some clips where we like to remind Tobago of a lot of things that may have been said, a lot that would have been put forward, promises and so on, and then we discuss a bit in terms of what we've been seeing unfolding, and then we have the minority leader with some very, very interesting information that he would have started to present last week at a press conference held at the office of the minority leader, and we're going to be going a bit into that this evening so that we can continue to unfold that information. I'll ask the director to just run those two clips for us back to back.
We thank you for being patriotic, and I assure you that just like my team of 12, we are all committed to this cause. You won't see us today and see us run away. You won't see us today and tomorrow you hear of a next party forming out of this party. You won't see us today and then you see one of us show up with a red shirt on PNM platform because we want fame and recognition that we can't get on Facebook. You won't see us today in black, and tomorrow after the election is done you see us in our next color. We are committed to this cause, and I tell you tonight that without regard for what the results will turn out to be on January 23rd, on January 24th, the PDP will remain strong, remain intact, and will remain right here. We now don't know about.
I'm glad how everything happening now. They've seen everybody for who they are. They're greedy, they're covetous, they're corrupt, they're prideful, they're spiteful. You know what about that? They turn on each other. Because that is how they have been treating all of us all the time. So they turn on one another. And a house divided will never stand. This PDP house, this PDP rock, this mansion that we trying to build here will stand. Because everybody, from your general to your lieutenants, all of us are committed to this fight.
So folks,
This deserves a few moments later.
what we always like to do is to remind our public of what was said. These are the things, these are the people who stood and very vociferously promised Tobago quite a lot. And what we see happening now is literally the exact opposite of what they would have said. And the minority leader, you always say something and ask the question, can you trust people like this who will always say one thing and do something else?
Very important question. And you know, for us as a minority councillor and myself, we always pride ourselves on truth to governance, truth to representation, because one of the things, you know, you would say things and we want to ensure that what we say are things that we can really back up by facts. So a number of things would come to us and we would have to wait, and one of the things we try to do is make sure that we have the relevant information. So you'd recognize everything we do, we provide data, we provide verifiable information, and oftentimes, most of the times, when we provide the information, it is indisputable information. And I think that is something we pride ourselves on, to ensure that when we bring information to the public, it is information that they can trust. And in contrast, you're seeing persons proffering promises. They are giving all kind of statements, and couple years or couple months after, you're recognizing that the very things that they told you they would not do is exactly what they end up doing. So, you know, that is something we continuously try to remind ourselves, that we must be truthful in governance, be truthful in politics, because your words and your actions will eventually come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
So true. And
no, it's just quite very interesting to see the comments of others when they were in another place versus when they are in the place that they currently are. And as the minority leader indicated, it's something that we often discuss. We are bound by our word, and we should operate in such a way that our words don't come back to haunt us. Yes, so what is being said, those are not the minority leader's words or my words or your words, Marlon. They are the words of where we are now seeing the Chief Secretary and now the Secretary of Tourism back then. And to see what is happening now, it is indeed contrast.
One of the things, and I want to point it out as well, before we actually get into your presentation, sir, something that we've also seen happening a lot is that this administration continues to try to govern by popularity, and especially on Facebook. I'd like the director to pull up the first flyer that I sent to you with the Carnival calendar of events. Last week we had a program, very interesting discussion. So this was released, and in this particular calendar of events, we would have seen Juve being promoted in Roxborough on a Sunday morning. And again, we know there is always lack of consultation. However, what is interesting, and we are going to do a before and after, I want the director to play a clip that came out shortly after this flyer was released as to what some of the people in Roxborough had to say about it.
Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago is a national event, calendar event. Druve is an event that started 4 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago on Monday morning till sometime in the midday. No, nobody has the right to change that for in Tobago. We are accustomed to getting Druve. As a matter of fact, everybody know that when the thing is read for Carnival and they make the thing, in every village in Trinidad and Tobago, somebody could play mass, because it is a national event, and if somebody in Bessel say they want to play mass and they don't play mass, you have to understand that they had a right. But nobody cannot just take it on their own and change the event. Look, for instance, Roxborough. We used to have 2 days of Carnival every year. They change it, they take one with satisfactory. Now they come and they take the next one day, the Monday, and telling we that we must come to Roxborough on Sunday, where all the churches have people going to church on Sunday morning, and we must play Druve here that the people can't get to the church, because everybody has to access the church from the road, on the main road, this one main road, and tell the chief sec, whoever it is, or who think that I see that no Druve, you better to keep the Druve. No Druve will be keeping in Roxborough on Sunday, when we people have to go and worship the Lord, and we are getting in that at all. Paul talking for me. You come in. Nobody would tell we that we have to think. We are accustomed that we want the national jubilee on Monday and we want we mass until them decide that Carnival is one Carnival and keep in Tobago. We want the whole pie, not piece of the pie. We need.
So we saw that reaction coming from not just this businessman in Roxborough, but a few others took to Facebook as well to voice their opinion. And what was amusing is that the very next day, and I'll ask the director to pull up the updated flyer, the very next day, this flyer was released, where we now see Juve shifted to Monday, as it usually would have been in Roxborough. Minority Leader, I will hand over to you to continue on this. And what do you think about this?
This clearly shows his governance by VAPs. There's no leadership. And it feels like if it's muddy pot, long time when you, as little children, you would be pretending and playing around. And that is what it feels like. There is no proper planning. In fact, one of the tenets of their mandate was to really consult.
Yes.
And what it shows is a lack of consultation as well, because had you spoken to the people in Roxborough and all the other stakeholders, you would have known that that date is not a date they're comfortable with, and you didn't have to now come and embarrass yourself, where it took a number of activists to basically call you out for you to now go back to the original plan as it used to be, right? Who changed it? What was the reason for changing it? And so you continue to see there's a lack of coordination and a lack of direction, a lack of strategic direction in terms of how they treat with festivals, how they treat with governance on a whole. And, this topic is a topic I think we would have to bring in stakeholders post-Carnival to have a serious discussion on Carnival, because I recognize when you look between October and this one and the kind of bacchanal that is involved, it seems that this administration does not have a clue as to how they organize festivals, what is the purpose, how they treat with bringing all the elements and bringing all the stakeholders and getting them involved and ensuring that stakeholder interest is protected as well. Because too often we are seeing where the stakeholders are left out, the stakeholders are crying, and they are the creme de la creme of the show.
Of course.
I was listening to Mr. Leacock this morning, and he made an important point. At the end of the day, we are putting on a festival, a showcase for the world to come and view. And if you do not equip the stakeholders who have to put on the show, and they're doing it almost free of charge in terms of they put on a free show, nobody pays to come to watch mass.
Exactly.
So obviously you have to make sure that they are comfortable and provide them with the wherewithal.
But what I do, and we have been seeing a trend developing, and especially in this whole issue of Carnival. So again, the minority would have reached out to the stakeholders in Carnival when we heard about the October Carnival, and the three main stakeholders, Pan, Calypso, and Mass. And in our discussions, none of them knew what was happening really in relation to Carnival. Now we are in February, National Carnival, and we are seeing a similar occurrence where the stakeholders seem not to
don't know what's going on.
Be aware as to what is happening. Plans are made for them on their behalf. They're not involved, and they, of course, are not in agreement with the number of major changes that were made for them. And it is clear that, again, there has been no consultation. And there also seemed to be a lack of understanding of what is required by each stakeholder. And if you go around and you just listen to the nuggets, you will hear clearly what their needs are. And we are here to serve as an executive, as an island government. You are here to serve the needs of the people.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, you sit in your offices and you determine or you feel this is what the stakeholder want. If you don't speak to them, then you're not aware.
Exactly. And the thing is, as you rightfully said, Minority Councillor Benoit, the stakeholders are clear as to what they require to put on an event for them, for their people. So PAN, when you talk to the PAN leadership in Tobago, whether it's Miss James, Salisha James or Mrs. Beverly Ramsey Moore, they would tell you exactly what it would take to provide a very a good PAN production in Tobago that would include all the bands, make sure bands are happy and all that. When you talk to the mass people, when you talk to Miss Bedlo and they would tell you exactly what they require. And when you talk to Calypso, when you talk to Mr. King, he would tell you exactly what they require. But for some reason, there seems to be this new administration comes in with this idea that they know everything. And they don't need to talk to nobody. And they're going to do it their way and throw out the baby with the bathwater. And this is why we are ending up in problems after problems.
Who are you putting on the show for, and who is participating in the show?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah?
Yeah. But Marilyn, I would really like to move on. Before we move on, though, there was a big announcement today. And, sometimes, oftentimes, people try to, when our Prime Minister, I must say, is a very strong, decisive, stable, visionary leader. And he does not get the kind of credit, in my own estimation, that he rightfully deserves. This man would have taken this country through, I would believe, one of our toughest times.
Yes.
Economic times. We have had to deal with a pandemic. We have had to deal with declining energy reserves and a whole heap of other issues, crime, etc. And through it all, this man had to make some of the toughest decisions. And they really say time is really a sort of provider of answers in a sense, and brings truth to questions.
Yeah.
And you would recognize that you may have asked, why is he doing these things? You remember when we were going through when they had the sanctions against Venezuela, and when we had the issue of whether Guaido or Maduro, and when the Prime Minister was very decisive in terms of what is the government policy, what is going to be CARICOM's policy of non-intervention, and people, we had the opposition saying, look, the US sanctioned them, so you should just blindly follow the US. But the Prime Minister was clear as to what is the policy of Trinidad and Tobago in the first instance, and CARICOM, and we are now seeing the fruits of those decisive action, to the point that because he was able to maintain that relationship, today the Prime Minister could have announced that the US, who were the ones who would have laid the sanction, has now granted us approval license for us to go forward with this arrangement where we can extract oil, gas reserves in Venezuela to the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we are talking about billions upon billions of dollars. This is groundbreaking. This is something that requires all the applause, all the credit, because for the longest you have the naysayers looking to nitpick everything. But I hope when the dust is clear, that persons would give this Prime Minister his just due and his just credit. And I really want to commend and congratulate the Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy, and the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago for this action that is going to really redound to the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is what governance and leadership is about. It's not all times taking the popular decision, but it's also understanding what decisions are necessary to bring forward the best interests of the people. And we have seen the Prime Minister take those decisions over and over again. And most of the times, he has been proven to have been right in terms of his actions.
Yeah, congratulations to the Prime Minister. And it all has to do with what is the vision? understanding what is
There is a
required,
clear
and
cut.
taking the necessary action.
Yeah. So, you want to get right into it?
So I say that in contrast to what we are dealing with here in Tobago. And I want to put that the first action we heard from this administration was to basically tell Tobagonians that we had no money. And I want us to understand that wasn't by accident. We had no money was a precursor to also justify why they had to basically outsource certain contracts. Then the second action was to tell us that the Tobago contractors that have the capacity to do the development works in Tobago, they are corrupt. That was a specific action to sideline these contractors in preference for contractors that they have relationship in Trinidad. Then you will recall that we were told about 4 emergency roads that we required, absolutely needed for the Carnival in October. That was no accident. That was specifically to allow them to justify the method of procurement to get these preferred contractors that they would have already identified in Trinidad. And then you would have heard the whole question of the Chief Secretary giving us a narrative about deferred contracts, bill, design, finance. That also was a deliberate discussion to defer payment to justify the inflated costs that I am now going to discuss with you here. And you would recognize in some instances the cost has been inflated by almost 300%. And we are not talking about things that you have to import, such as steel or even bitumen. In some instances, you're talking about simple service as bending steel. You're talking about simple service as excavation. You're talking about putting up some signs, the dusting the road, broom and cleaning. And these you would see. And what is so disingenuous about this arrangement is that we are comparing the cost that the Chief Secretary told us is inflated, so we are not even looking at what is the market rate, because we understood that some of these costs were inflated because of the very design, build, finance arrangement, and so forth. And we are looking at the very cost that the Chief Secretary said was inflated and corrupt. And when you compare those post-costs to what is now the Chief Secretary, Farley and Trevor and his administration cost, overall, there's a 34.4% increase in the overall cost. And when I break this down to you, for this one road, that is the Pigeon Point Road, we would have given an additional $18.6 million to this contractor. Because the road, if you had used the original rates that the previous administration used, that road would have cost somewhere around $36 million. As opposed to the rates that Farley and Trevor used, which is now costing us $54.4 million. And when you spread that across the other 4 roads, that is a cost of almost $309 million that would be costing the taxpayers of Tobago. And when you juxtapose that to the rates that were used previously, we are talking about something about $200 million. So what we are having is an overall excessive cost, inflated cost of over $100 million over those 4 projects. And, you know, I have said it. When the reason why I'm following this issue, because this issue isn't just about inflated costs, but anybody who is big and have sense would understand the prerogative, would understand the clandestine motives behind inflating these costs. It's not by accident these costs are inflated. It's not by accident the narrative to sideline Tobago contractors started. it's not by accident that these contractors were so selected. And it is not by accident that up to this day, we have filed a Freedom of Information request and we cannot get a proper answer as to what was the procurement process. Who were the people involved in selecting these contractors? How did you find these contractors? One of them a roofing company.
Of 2 years old.
Of 2 years old. No real previous experience in paving roads. Yet they were able to land in Tobago a lucrative $54 million contract, which is $18 million more than what the previous administration would have paid.
And I just want to jump in here because the minority leader started speaking about coming into office and indicating that there was no money. And at the time, I think all of Tobago was in an uproar because the past administration, it was alleged, left the quote-unquote THA treasury empty. And at the time, we would have had a press conference, but I'm not sure if people at the time was amenable to the discussion and heard what we said. But the election was called and they came into office sometime in December. Yes? December is at the end of a period, a quarter in the financial year. The financial year starts September 30th. At the time, and the Chief Secretary would have lamented it when he came into office, that the former administration was receiving releases month to month.
Correct.
So you receive releases in December to incur expenditure occurring in December and so forth and so forth and so forth. December particularly being a month where THA employees, most employees are paid early.
Yeah.
So if you are coming in, let's say mid to the end of December, it means that the allocation that was received for that period would have been utilized for salaries and all the other operating expenditure. So obviously, there would not have been releases as if it was the beginning of the month or the beginning of the period. We also indicated at that time there was additional releases to be issued from the Ministry of Finance. So you had some in excess of $700 million, I think was the amount, to be received for January. That's for 9 months. January to September, the end of the financial year. So it therefore means that you will have funding, would not be for the whole financial year, but you will have funding for the majority of the fiscal year to do what is required. And I don't think that was understood. So you come in and you say the treasury empty, we spend out all the money, it had no more money for you to do what you are required to do. You also boast that you are now receiving funding 2 months, 2.5 months, probably 3 months in advance. So it means that you have funding sufficiently so that you can plan ahead of the quarter. Now we are seeing, fast forward, you are seeing inflated costs, and we have to take it in context. You are seeing, so you come in, no money. We would have explained that that was really not the case. Now we are seeing that, again, you're blacklisting Tobago contractors with the report, the preliminary report that was laid in the House, that we are still to receive a final report. It was promised that that will come sometime very soon, probably a month, 2 weeks or whatever. We are still to receive a final report from all the other audits. So you blacklist them. Now, you have indicated in that preliminary report, as the minority leader said, these costs associated were inflated. And the minority leader continues to ask the question, if that cost was inflated, what do you consider the current rates that you are paying to these, this particular contractor that we are comparing? And again, what is the opportunity cost of paying this inflated rate?
No, go ahead.
You go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, what is the opportunity cost of paying this inflated rate versus other things that could have been done? So what you could do with $18 million
And you understand? And then on top of that, remember one of the justification was that these roads were needed for Carnival.
And they were emergency
works. Lo and behold, out of the 4 roads, only 1 road was delivered.
Yes.
Right? And it wasn't even used during the Carnival.
Correct. So even if the justification for increasing is that it was an emergency and you needed it right away, since there was no emergency because the roads were not built, what is the other justification for the increase in price?
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the issue of our Tobago economy, which is suffering. Tobago is at a static kind of state. It's standstill, stagnant. The construction sector is at a complete halt. Little to no activity. It's just a small man building a house, but there's no serious activity. And that has been that is part and parcel because of this policy, where you have sidelined Tobago-based contractors who have Tobago resident employees, Tobago families, and they don't understand in fact, I believe they understand the ripple effect, because it was Trevor James who told us about how the strategic intent and when you ship money outside of
he said spirit away
money outside of Tobago, you are building an economy elsewhere. So having understanding this, it baffles me, and that I don't know any right-thinking Tobagonian that would not ask the question. Then if you know this, if you know that when you siphon $309 million out of Tobago's economy, it would destroy Tobago, then why are you doing it?
No, it is only understood when they are on the other side. Because remember, Minority Leader, you asked the question in the House, and the response from the goodly Secretary of Infrastructure is that he wasn't an economist.
Yeah.
So he could not pronounce on what the effects would be. But when he was on the other side, he understood what the strategic intent was. He understood what the economic reality was. He understood what spiriting away money from. And the thing is, that was not the case.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to also remind Tobagonians how dangerous this is. Because while we're talking about this $309 million that is being basically mortgaged away, right? Because it's money that have to be paid. There's also a liability that has not been paid as well.
Correct.
So on top of that $300 million that they are now mortgaging away, they also have liabilities there almost equal in the same.
Yes.
And it tells you that we are in a real serious financial position going forward if we allow this to continue. Because when you look at this, and if this is the approach at the Division of Infrastructure, we are hearing over 200 houses to be built in Division of Settlements. And Minority Councillor asked during the last budget debate, how are you going to fund this? Because it was not part of your estimates. And nobody was able. All we got from the Secretary of Housing, of Settlements, was basically watch me work.
We are looking at, I'm not seeing that, because based on what was said, thank you for that reminder, because based on what was said, they were going to build a number of houses per year. They had a 4-year term.
Yes.
And they were going to build certain houses in that year. We were in the middle of the year.
June.
And not a house. You were still in the process of finalizing the plans. We are now 1 year. Have you seen any?
But what was even interesting, remember there was a spreadsheet as to how these houses were going to be delivered. And when we looked at Q2, which is now, we are told that there were going to be a number of houses being delivered during this quarter.
Yes. Where are the houses?
Where are the houses? And I am asking the question, would this same design build finance be the modality through which
and what will be the cost?
And what would be the cost?
And Minority Leader, it is $18 million basically, approximately, that we would have calculated in excess of what the bonded prices from the last administration. We are seeing last week, the administration took their meeting to Mariah, and when complaints were made about issues, they are saying that they don't have any funding to execute. So let's say $18 million. What you could have done with $18 million? Persons in the healthcare system saying that they don't have consumables. We are seeing persons are being paid late. Right now, I think a division, their monthly paid employees have not yet been paid.
I think several divisions.
Right? So persons are not being paid. We are seeing where the ex gratia promise has not yet been paid. We are also seeing where the back pay for the European workers have not yet been paid.
500 workers
we are
sent
seeing
home because they couldn't keep
precisely
them.
the 500 workers. We are seeing the homes can't be built because you don't have any money. We are seeing a number of
people can't get food card when they go for food card.
Yes, social provision of social services are not available as it used to be. There are a number of services that we cannot now execute because of the opportunity costs associated with these inflated prices.
And what another challenge I have with this, because you're correct, when we looked at that public meeting, and the impression was that they don't have no money. But if you don't have no money, then you would think that the contracts that you engage in would be financially prudent
and conservative.
Yet you are seeing where you're basically paying these inflated rates that are really scandalous. And I really want us to go into these scandalous inflated rates so that persons could get a better appreciation, because you see, the real proof is in the eating. And when you dissect the numbers, that is where you would really get on up. Because sometimes, even before, when we were just hearing $54 million, yes, it sounds a lot. But when you see the areas as to where some of these prices are inflated, it makes you really cringe.
It does. And it also makes you angry.
Angry as well.
Because you are seeing people crying. I was speaking to an employee of a contractor over the weekend, and she was saying that they are basically struggling monthly to keep workers engaged. They also indicated that she has not been paid for a year.
Wow.
Because they are trying to ensure that the daily paid get paid at the end of the period. So they are sacrificing to ensure that people get paid. So this is one contracting company. What about the other companies? What are their situations? And some of them, because they don't have jobs, are not able to keep anybody employed. So they have to send them home. When they are on the breadline, what happens to them? What happens to their families? What happens to their children?
Minority Leader, I know you want to get into some of the actual cost differentials. So I'll ask the director to pull back up the slide, and we'll run through some of the slides so that we can see the inflation that has been experienced in 9 months. 9 months difference.
So, and that, just to put it into context, because I know a number of persons would say, well, it's some time after, but we are talking about rates that were used up to December 6th, 2021. And these contracts, the negotiation contracts were given out in and around from about August. So we're talking about 8 months later. And I also, just before you, we are also, I would have gotten confirmation from the Ministry of Works of some of their rates, which is even lower than the rates that they had an issue with. So it's not that things have changed so drastically, fundamentally throughout the country, that everything has just doubled, that you know where you're seeing an increase throughout the system.
But also put it in the context. The sit-in was, what, in September? The sit-in was in September when the preliminary report of the audit came. And in that report, these prices, the prices
Yes.
from the past administration, the bonded prices were considered inflated.
Yeah.
So put that into context with these prices.
And that is what is so mind-boggling, because you are saying those prices, and as we put them up on the screen, one of the real issue was the $1,400 paid to supply and install and lay bitumen.
Yeah.
You said that was inflated.
It was corrupt.
And corrupt. Yet you have gone ahead, and in your arrangement with this contractor, you have agreed to pay this contractor $2,700, which is almost double the price. So it is doubly inflated, and I have to say, doubly corrupt.
Yes.
So I don't know who, and the point is, these are not made up figures. The figures are indisputable facts. The chief secretary had absolutely no problem accepting that these were, in fact, the rates that existed previously and the rates that they are now paying. But he tried to justify it by trying to tell us that costs went up. So since when the cost went up to dust the road and blow the road and pour up some signs and bend the steel and then excavate some dirt to make a drain, that you move from $340 to excavate to $2,250.
Yes.
Bending steel moved from $18 to almost $300. Hot mix, to lay and place the hot mix, moved from $1,400 to $2,700. That is mind-boggling.
But this one for excavation, $114 to $2,250.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
So when you look at the difference as a percentage for the hot mix,
close to 100%.
Almost 100%, 92.86%. You've moved from paying, in terms of difference, $3 million. $3 million. You know what we could do with $3 million? When you look at provision of general environmental requirements, and we are talking about simple things as prepared, so this is your preparatory work.
Yeah.
$245,000 difference from what was paid before to what they are paying now. Over 122.5% increase. If you're talking about inflated, that is inflated cost.
Yeah.
And I am positive when the dust is clear, because this is a matter we would pursue to the very end.
Yes.
Yeah.
When the dust is clear, you would recognize why these costs was inflated.
Excavation,
Look at
yes.
this one.
140.
Excavation.
That was the excavation.
873.68% increase in it.
Because you've moved from where excavation was
$114.
Yeah.
To 2,250.
2,000, yeah. 250.
Wow.
Yeah. And what was the reason? There's a provision of temporary site facilities and accommodation. It was 120,000 that moved to 460,000.
Yeah.
That's like a little house.
Yeah.
So that must be the house that Whitey planned to build.
That had to be.
Because I don't know
This
how
might be the
that
first
can
sample.
move in such a big increase.
Yeah. Look at this
190% difference.
Provision of signs for the project, you know.
Yeah,
Direct signs for project, you know.
Look at grading and leveling of roads to receive base costs for road repairs. It was originally $54,000. Under this administration, it's $450,000.
Because the rate moved from $18.
Yeah, $18 per square meter to $150. Come on,
$733.33%.
This is dark. This is rotten. This is corrupt. No, but I would almost wager that this have some level of corruption involved in it.
High level.
Because when you inflate costs, that is how you create the ability to share the money.
to broom and clean roadway to receive asphalt. Again,
This is
this
an
was
interesting one.
$48 per square meter.
Any Tobagonian that accepts this tells me they don't like Tobago. Let's put politics aside.
Yeah.
Forget, let us pretend like we come in, we don't know which party governing. We don't know who do it. But this is in front of you and see this. Would you accept this? Let us just pretend I just wake up a morning and see that somebody went into an arrangement like this. Would you feel comfortable with this kind of arrangement? And this is not just for this contract, this is across the board.
Across the board. This is the one that we've examined so far.
Because when you listen to persons, that $19 million contract, that little piece of road between Dutch Fort, that was originally to be from Mount Mary and end up being Smithfield to Dutch Fort, that cost us $19 million with one little bridge and patch here road. You didn't even patch the entire road.
Yeah.
Piece of road patch, then you leave out piece of road patch again, and so you go. Cost us $19 million. I've spoken to experts, and a man told me no way that road could cost more than $5 million. No way.
Exactly.
And he has put his professional opinion on the line. Yes, challenge. And the thing why it's so dark, the chief secretary is carrying out what he calls an independent audit.
Yes,
and I'm saying, if you really worth your salt as a chief secretary, you know what you would do? Is use that very independent auditor. Let us wager how independent. Let us see apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Have them audit these roads too. And let us see what they would say about the comments on your prices. So if you really want to show that you were above board, you were better than the past, put your road or your roads that you are now building to the test. Let us see what the auditor would say about your rates. That is more than the rates that he is auditing now.
But Minority Leader, we can even take them a step further in holding them accountable. Remember, it was the Deputy Chief Secretary who spoke of having a website where any citizen could go on and you could see the contract, you could see what was paid for the contract, who was the contractor. Why are they not putting that information up for the public?
But look, now I am Citizen Kelvin. Citizen Kelvin requesting information from this administration, and they're ducking and hiding. We are seeing it. They're ducking and hiding to provide the information, but I am going to tell them I'm going to chase them down and we are going to get this information by the hook or the crook, because there's a law called the Freedom of Information Act, and it spells out processes when state agencies are ducking and running and hiding, like the Division of Infrastructure.
And we are calling for this audit, but we would have called for several audits that the Chief Secretary would have said.
And you promised?
Yes.
It's going to happen.
So the commitment, even in terms of this said contractor and the racial comments made to the reporter, have you heard anything? There was some investigations into those things. We have not heard.
I think that investigation, based on the Chief Secretary, started on the 28th of October.
Yeah.
But since we've asked the question now, what was the last feedback we got?
With respect
about
to
that question with the racial comment and the investigation.
Well, so you would have seen
Tell us what incident
happened. So, you know, we have the ability to ask questions in the House once every month when we meet.
Yes.
We filed the question treating with this statement of the Chief Secretary, which was publicized via press release, that he's going to do this investigation about this statement by the same roof contractor now getting our 50. So you recognize how everything aligned. This is the same $54 million roof contractor who got our road contract down at one of our most eco-sensitive area, Pigeon Point, right? The mangroves down at Pigeon Point. Lo and behold, we got a response coming back from the office of the clerk asking us, based on recommendations by the presiding officer, to basically amend the question. We went back, we amended by the guidelines provided from the PO, sent back the question. The question, yesterday we received our order paper. The question is properly placed on the order paper to be asked at the next sitting, which is on Thursday. Lo and behold, this afternoon, I am checking my emails, and without any notification to the person who would have filed the question, I'm seeing a general email sent out to all members of the assembly, including minority council, I'm sure you probably received, where the clerk is telling me the PO has decided not to allow the question to be asked. No reason given, no explanation, no notification, yet the question has been pulled. And I'm asking the question, what is the reason for pulling this question? What is the authority? And why, after allowing and approving the question
for the order paper,
has it suddenly you just get an epiphany?
On the order
Yes. After it you just got an epiphany that the question should not be asked. Tobago, this is what we're dealing with for transparency, accountability, and governance.
But what was the reason, and that is the part I wanted to hear you, what was the reason why the question had to be amended in the first place? If I'm not mistaken, they quoted a standing order.
Well, they quoted the standing order that speaks to not using any publication from newspaper. And if you're quoting a matter of fact, you as a person proposing the question must take responsibility for that matter of fact. And therefore, I had no issue taking responsibility because it was the chief secretary, it was in the public domain via the press release of the chief secretary
from the office of the chief
indicating that he would have noted the comments of the contractor and he would investigate and give us an answer as to a response as to what is the decision of his executive as it pertains to this contractor who allegedly made a racist comment. And therefore, I don't know what is so sweet about this administration and this contractor that they believe they must protect by all means necessary every ounce of information treating with this contract and this contractor, because you are seeing where even in following the law, which is a freedom of information request, the law prescribes that you have 1 month to respond.
Correct.
And up to this point, we have gone past the 1 month. We are now on at least the 3rd month. And they are still beating around the merry-go-round to provide us with simple questions. You said you had a process. All we ask you to do is outline the process. Who are the people involved in the process? Let us see what the people who you award the contract provided. Let us see their financials. Let us see their credentials. Let us see.
References.
Let Tobagonians be comfortable to know that the person you decided to inflate the cost and give 54 million, they are in fact worthy and they would have in fact followed due process.
The process.
The procurement
and remember,
process.
this is also on the premise that when we would have done our research into the registry of contractors, was this contractor found on the registry?
And that is one of the other
so how
concerns.
was the contractor pre-qualified? Because
and then you look because I've searched far and I've searched wide as to see whether there was a public call where persons would know. Everybody was given the opportunity, both in Trinidad and Tobago, to submit and tender, and then you would have pre-qualified them or so. As far as my information and as far as my search would have revealed, there was no such public notice. So how they found out about these emergency roads? Who knew these contractors to even tell them here what bid
Yeah.
How did they know about the scope?
That's what I'm saying.
That is
How do they know about the scope to bid on?
Yes.
How?
But Minority Leader, we're speaking about the law. Remember the last question you asked the Chief Secretary about the EMA's report? Paraphrasing. What did the Chief Secretary say? About the Tobago House of Assembly Act versus other laws of the land?
Yes.
So don't be surprised.
Well, as somebody remind me on the live that I was a footballer, and I think I was a decent one at that. So I accustomed running down ball from the box, from my defending box, right to the opponent box and scoring goals. And this matter is one matter I won't rest till I see that ball behind the bag. And the ball being behind the bag is people being held accountable. I will not rest on this matter until somebody is held accountable for siphoning and making arrangements where Tobago money could end up in undeserving hands at the expense of Tobagonians. And we're saying at the expense of Tobagonians because we are talking about all the other things that could be done with that money.
Yeah.
We are talking about all the people who would have been bypassed right here in Tobago that could have used that money to benefit Tobagonians. We are talking about jobs.
Right
we are talking about supporting the hardwares. We are talking about renting the trucks, the backhoe, all the equipment here in Tobago. This is how you build economies. When we get our allocation from Trinidad, our first call should be to see how do we utilize this allocation to expand the Tobago economy, not to shrink it.
And how do we build the private sector?
Because I gave one example and say in terms of the previous administration, they were able to build capacity amongst contractors to the point that contractors could have now diversified, and we have contractors who would have gone out, got involved into things as hospitality, building hotels that Comfort Inn is a contractor of the Tobago House of Assembly that built that hotel, and that we all now can benefit from 75 brand new rooms. We have contractors who would have invested in other things, real estate and other things, building homes, so that Tobagonians could have alternative land, because we all can't just depend on the THA to provide lands, and THA don't have the resources to build and develop lands at the pace that the society in Tobago demands. So this is how you build an economy, by you, the THA, providing the wherewithal, the enabling environment, and also being one of those initiators. So when you initiate, you just allow the private sector to run and do the work.
And in this instance, we cannot say that the Tobago contractors does not have the capacity to these works
because
that were awarded elsewhere.
Because I am saying in this matter, if it smells rotten and if it smells corrupt, it looks corrupt, it talks corrupt, corruption exists.
Is that chicken?
Is that chicken?
But this is very scandalous. It is sad. And because everywhere you turn, you see people crying. People coming into the office of the minority, crying, literally in tears. And we are seeing a situation where if you made a different decision, the lives and livelihood of our Tobago resident will be different.
Correct. Because the night when I was able to, when I got the information regarding the rates used by the previous administration in DIQE, and I compared it to this document that they accepted from the contractor, and I started seeing the difference in the inflated cost.
Appalling.
I mean, I felt really broken. And I don't know that, and I felt broken for more because I know the amount of people out here struggling. I know the amount of people that depend on the THA, whether it's for employment, whether it's for social services, whether it's for education. people depend in Tobago because our private sector has not been fully developed. People, even the private sector,
depend heavily
on the state. And to see an administration that promised to really put Tobago first, instead turn around and put Tobago last, it hurt me to the core.
And also promise that you will deal with the bread and butter issues of the people.
Yeah.
What is more bread and butter than these issues?
Exactly.
What is more bread and butter than taking food out of the Tobagonians' mouth, literally? If that is not bread and butter, I don't know what else is.
And just as we close, because I notice a judgment, and I mean, it's a conversation we have not had it for a while. I know we're talking about unmasking the truth, but I saw judgment. It was against the current government of Trinidad and Tobago, UTT, where I think it was a principal awarded over $1.3 million based on the manner of dismissal. And I'm sure Tobagonians have been paying attention to the number of dismissals that have been happening. Some of them very silently because of the uproar, especially during the CPEP restructuring and dismissal. What you're recognizing that they're quietly singling out people and dismissing people. Some of them would service over 23 years and all that kind of thing. They're refusing to renew their contracts. They are, in some instances, they're just terminating them.
Yeah.
And if that judgment is anything to go by, that is another situation that would spell a lot of egg on the face of the THA in terms of even wasteful costs that these people could have been put to productive use. And it may very well be that we end up spending millions because of compensating because of political victimization.
Yep.
But again, if you don't have the money, where are you finding the funding to pay the damages, pay the costs?
It's a real critical situation.
Yep.
Guys, we've said quite a lot.
we are focused. We are keeping our eye on the ball. There's this theme of this evening's discourse rightfully expose unmasking the truth. We are here to really unmask the truth. We are here to also tell you the truth as to what is happening in Tobago. I take no joy. In fact, I had a post this morning and I really expressed sometimes how mentally taxing, how exhausting it is calling out blunder after blunder, corruption after corruption, mistake after mistake, and you're wondering to yourself, but what these people thought it was. What people they really thought governance was, and Mr. Manning said it, the PNM makes governance looks easy. Because when you look, it clearly tells you that they weren't prepared for governance. That at the end of the day, fundamentally, that is what they just weren't prepared for governance. So, and you're seeing it across divisions. You're seeing mistake after mistake, blunder after blunder. Governance by VAPs.
And sometimes it appears as if, you go to bed at night and they have this dream or vision and they wake up and try to implement.
Just like that. No consultation, no
it's really
assessments.
Coming across lack of planning, lack of vision. Yes, you want to be the greatest of the island, but what else?
Yes,
it's just a statement.
What are the mechanisms? What are the inputs? Because we had the cake analogy, but what is really the ingredients? They have not told us.
How do you intend to become?
What is the plan? What is the plan? And I've asked them that. I've asked it in tourism, and we could talk on and on when you look at the lack of cohesion. In terms of the governance strategy of this administration. One time you see one person over there, sometimes they now start to clash heads. I'm seeing agriculture dealing with tourism too. And if you look at it, it's now getting so confusing. They're like headless chickens.
But you're seeing it clear. Look at Carnival. You come
Yeah.
out with one calendar. But people going on uproar, you
You
change it.
change
You
it.
change it.
If people uproar again, they might change
Yeah.
it
Change it
again.
again.
So what is your plan? What do you intend to achieve?
Exactly.
I'm seeing Marilyn, we'll have to talk to producer that we can get a number so that people could call in.
Yes.
They're saying
Yes.
so we could probably, going forward, ask the producer if we could get on half an hour after we would have the discussions,
Entertain
allow for
some phone calls.
some phone calls. Of course, it would have to be managed, but we definitely should allow, because we have some faithful viewers here, and
Yes.
we really want to keep them involved in
And
the discussion and
engaged.
engaged.
Well, the irony is that we had already spoken to the director about the phone calls. So he already indicated that the facility could be made available for us as soon as we're ready to have it implemented.
That's some good news.
So I think that we can safely say by the next program, we would be able to open for some
Okay, so
phone
viewers,
calls.
you're hearing that. The moderator has committed. I hope he's better than the administration current in keeping his commitments, because I'm not going to take any responsibility for that commitment, but he has committed to ensuring that by the next program, we would be in a position to receive your calls. So we look forward to those interactions as well. Minority Council, always a pleasure.
Yes, it was.
Mr. David, thank you for your great work as well. Always here, very dedicated.
Thank you very
And I
much.
want to thank you, the viewers, for your dedication, your loyalty, your support as well, your prayers. Because in this thing, you really need
Yes.
the prayers and the protection and the spiritual direction of the Almighty. So we thank you all. And we continue to do the work. You have a working minority. Today we sat down, we spent the stage a peaceful, very peaceful. And sometimes it tells you that not all the time you have to do your work with a lot of noise. Sometimes you do it very silently, and with the Almighty leading, you would see the results.
So true. So, Minority Leader, thank you very much. There's so much that was presented here tonight. I mean, the information, and it's going to be made available to as many organizations that want to have access to it. Some would have already requested and would have gotten copies. But, you know, we have to close this evening.
Yes, please let us find a way to circulate
the information.
This document. We need to find a way to get this.
So
to
any
Tobago
organization wishing to get a copy, you can feel free to contact us at the Minority Office at 612-9492, and we will seek to make a copy of the document available. So we were discussing this evening on Masking the Truth, and one of the high points that was brought out was where we would have indicated that before this time, we heard the very secretary, Trevor James, speak about building strategic intent to build another economy. And I think it's fitting that we remind the people of what he said as we leave this evening. We want to thank you for logging in. We want to thank you for this continued support. And we can do this with your support, with your prayer. And we look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday, as we even introduce our call-in segment. So I'll ask the director to take us out with that now very famous clip.
If you're in Tobago, you're not producing any construction material. Every piece of material that you purchase, whether it's from a Tobago hardware or not, is building an economy somewhere else. It's not multiplying here.
Right.
It's not multiplies from that spend, even if you purchase it through a Tobago hardware. It's just the markup they put on. And if you could calculate that as an economist would, when the worker spends that salary, when the businessman reinvests that part of that profit, the economist will tell you that the worker is going to spend on basic necessities first, food, housing, shelter, food, clothing, shelter. And all of that is being produced somewhere else as well. So the economy of Tobago don't benefit from that. When you have a foreign contractor, foreign in this sense, meaning non-Tobago contractor, then the labor, the money you pay in labor, benefits another economy as well. And if it were a non-Tobago contractor, then the management, the money you pay to manage the project, benefits somewhere else as well. So, and so you go along that line, of course the profit is spirited away. So you end up spending $1 billion and the economy doesn't change into Tobago. And that to me is where the problem is. When you have a strategic intent, because by now that is what it is. It is not like a capacity or anything like that. After 20 years, you can't argue that. When you have a strategic intent to procure construction services outside of Tobago, then your strategic intent is to build another territory, in this case, Trinidad. It